Association for Near-Death Studies, and we meet here once a month and have a speaker about a near-death experience or a spiritually transformative experience. And everybody's welcome. We try to meet on the first Saturday of each month, but sometimes, as this month, it didn't work out that way. It's based on when we can get the room, that we rent from the A.R.E. And let's see. So these are the announcements. So our next meeting is June 2nd. So that's 3 weeks from today. And our speaker will be Yvonne Sneeden, who some of you may have heard her 2 years ago. She has a beautiful story. And for the workshop, she was a co-producer of a documentary called Back from the Light, which is interviews with people who have had near-death experiences and their families about what the after effects of this kind of spiritually transformative experience has on the person, and also for the family members and friends, because they really are life-changing events. And sometimes when we change dramatically, the people around us don't want us to change dramatically, and there can be some fallout. So to me, it's a fascinating documentary, and I'm in it. So as is Dave Bennett is in it, and interviewing a lot of different people who have had these experiences. So I think you might enjoy that. That'll be the workshop in the afternoon on June 2nd. So other things coming up, we have our retreat for experiencers called NDE A.R.E. It's not just for people with NDEs, but any kind of dramatic, transformative spiritual experience. And we spend a weekend together on the ocean front, and just sharing our stories and talking about the challenges that we've had as a result of them. And it's really wonderful. So if you've had one of those experiences and you'd like to join us, that's going to be October 11 to 14. The IANS conference, they have a conference every year, and this year it's August 30th to September 2nd, over Labor Day weekend in Bellevue, Washington, just outside of Seattle. So they have a whole weekend of speakers on research about NDEs and all kinds of things associated with the experience. And some of us feel like the best part of the whole thing is that after you go a couple of times, you realize that you're meeting family every time you go to the conference. So it's like a family reunion every year. And this afternoon we have a workshop with our speaker today called Exploring Unconditional Love, Fear, Oneness, Separation, and Ego. And he will tell us a little more about that later. After the presentation at noon, a bunch of us go up the hill to lunch at the cafe, where we can talk and get into fabulous conversations about all kinds of things. And then the workshop starts at 2. And Bill will also be speaking tomorrow at the Fellowship of the Inner Light. And I think that starts at 10:45. So we have 4 simple rules. So do not judge one experience against another, because each experience is unique. Everything said at our meetings is confidential. No one will attempt to proselytize or convert the group to anything. We're not like a belief-based group. We're an experience-based group. And please mute or turn off your cell phones before we start. Okay. I don't think I have any more announcements. Okay, we have a raffle for a book. What book are we giving away? giving away. Or do we want to have the winner can pick?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. We have Gifts from the Edge by Claudia Watts Edge, Stories of the Other Side, and Practicing Conscious Living and Dying by Anna Maria Hemingway. So, I'm going to let our speaker pull a name. No pressure.
Don't pull your own.
You would want everyone to win. David Riblet. So you get to pick which book you would like. Okay, so today's speaker is Bill Taylor, and his topic is Never-Ending Lessons from an NDE. And he describes the intensity of the love and forgiveness that flooded into him in this heaven, and describes the view of the universe seeing threads connecting everything to everything. His professional life included working as a computer data analyst on medical drug and device studies for FDA approval, and working for law firms as a computer analyst. He led the Maryland IANS group for nearly 20 years. He joined the International IANS board in 1997 and served as president from 2000 to 2003. And he's been on many radio and TV shows, including Art Bell, Bill O'Reilly, and Dr. Oz. He's even appeared in a Penn and Teller NDE spoof video, which I want to find that.
Yeah, we need to talk about that at lunch.
Right, yeah. So, but on a personal note, I'm delighted to be able to introduce Bill, because he will always have a very special place in my heart. I had my experience in 1985, and there wasn't a lot of information out there about an NDE. I just knew I had had this really amazing experience, and I didn't have anybody to talk about it with. And I think in the early 90s, I ran across the Maryland IANS group, which wasn't too far from where I lived, and I went to that, and Bill was the first person I met. He was the organizer and the leader, and he welcomed me with open arms. And he was the first other person I had met who had had an NDE. So just by validating my experience, you know, he showed me that I was not a crazy loon. And the other thing Bill did for me was, about that time, this phenomena that I don't talk about very often, was that I started having these discarnate lions walking around with me. And there were about 12 of them, and I could not see them, but I could feel them, and they would like brush up against my legs, and you know, and I experienced that they could get bigger or smaller depending on the situation. If I was walking down the road on a dark night, they'd get really big, and I would watch people coming toward me on the sidewalk and cross the street. But so here I have this thing going on, and I have no context for this, but I am aware that this is going on. And yet again, I'm thinking I am a total crazy loon for thinking that I have these lions walking around with me. And one day I walked into the meeting, and Bill goes, "Oh, and here's Ellen and her lions." And I'm like, "What? Can you see them? I can't see them." So 2 times he validated my experience and let me realize that even though it was unique and perhaps unusual or out of the norm, or well, unusual, it was still perfectly normal and real. So and over the years I got to know him very well, and he's a very special person to me. So I'm very delighted to introduce our speaker today, Bill Taylor.
Thanks, Ellen. And gee, it's wonderful to be back in Virginia Beach again. There's such special people here. And I just extend thanks to Dave and Cindy for hosting us while we're here. It's just wonderful to be here again. It seems like all us Northerners, if we're Northerners, we tend to migrate south in our lifetimes.
Yeah,
don't
we do.
It's cold up there. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me again, and we'll see what shows up here today. Just want to talk about, sort of for me, it's been, I call it never-ending lessons because it never leaves. You know, the NDE is always there, and everything I do and everything I see is patterns right there, and I take what it is and I match it to that, and I say, how does this fit in? So it's really, it's with you. Once you have that experience, it's with you forever, you know. So let me figure this out here. Okay, am I in your way here? Maybe I can you hear me if I stand down here or something? Is that all right? The 2,500 years ago, this person named Lao Tzu said some things that really resonate, many things really, but one of them was that he said, in the beginning of heaven and earth, there were no words. And here in this time, we're trying to describe events that have happened to us that we really don't have words for. And we're trying to convey this information to you. And I know for me it was very frustrating in the beginning. How can I describe these things? You can say a word that everybody understands, but they're not, it doesn't really make sense to you. It's hard to convey these, what has really happened, and some of the meanings. So some of the human level definitions we have, and I'll say human level because we'll talk about these, is love is an intense feeling of deep affection, and we'll get into love. It's all about love. About healing too, to make healthy, whole, or sound, restore to health, free from ailment. Energy is the capacity to do work. You know, that's what we refer to. And time is the progress of existence and events that occur in succession from past through the present to the future. And I call them human level definitions because from an NDE point of view, these may not be complete. Yeah, they describe something, but they may not really describe this. Unconditional love isn't often described in technical terms, but to an NDEer, the most common characteristic of an NDE is the experience of unconditional love. And when you're on the other side, this love is just floods you, it just fills you. And I found on the internet, here's some descriptions of this love. The Dalai Lama says, love is the absence of judgment. And this other one, the measure of love is to love without measure. I'm not sure who said that. Somebody might know. Let me read this one here. This was from Abraham Hicks. Almost all of you misunderstand what unconditional love is. Unconditional love is holding vibrational alignment with who you are, no matter what is going on around you. I'd have to think about that too hard, I think. But so unconditional love, holding vibrational alignment with who you are, no matter what is going on around you. And Wayne Dyer, there is no greater power in heaven or on earth than pure unconditional love. And we'll talk about that because I know of no greater power than that. Here's Anita Morjani. Have you had Anita Morjani talk here?
I don't think so.
But,
no.
you know, she says unconditional love is our birthright, not judgment or condemnation, and there's nothing we need to do to earn it. This is simply who and what we are. And another Wayne Dyer, this is cute. Fear knocked at the door, love answered, and no one was there. Fear knocked at the door, love answered, and no one was there. I love that one. And here's another interesting one. This is by a Persian poet of the 1300s, Hafiz. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. So here's the sun beaming loving energy, if you will, to Earth, and never does the sun ask for any payment back. Isn't that kind of neat? So these kind of things, Google those, Google unconditional love and see what you find. But to me, this energy, I call it really love energy, because I'm not sure how else to describe it. The highest, I don't really like the word highest. To me, it's the energy. But it's the most powerful energy of the universe. We think in terms of different kinds of energy, electricity energy or heat energy and so forth. But all of them really come from this. So I'm trying to describe the simplicity of what's here, and also the power and what the nature of what's here. And this power, this love, also is what creates and what heals. And to me, it's the only energy. And here on the internet are some artists and photographer renditions of love. And notice the rays that they use, rays coming out from usually a central point, and also the connections. Like in this one, this artist has everything connected. And in this one too, there's lots of connections. These are sort of little hearts coming out from the center. And here, chakras perhaps, radiation. And in this where this group of people are, the center, and then this energy is flowing up, again, rays coming out. And this one too. Love energy, pass it forward, it starts with us. There is nothing to figure out. The only answer is love. But those are fun to Google for that. This is a new form of love. I've never seen anything like that one before, so you'll have to figure that out. This is called carrot love. So I come up with what I call a love energy model to help respond to some questions and help to explain things. And some of the questions that I was working on all through these years, or where do we come from? Simple questions. These are pretty easy questions. Who we are, another easy question. Why we're here, that's a little more difficult, isn't it? And also where we're going when we die. So we'll get back to some of these and see if we can get a plausible response or answers to some of these. Yes, you'll finally learn the meaning of life here for all that's worth because you're dead. So, it might have been Lao Tzu who also said that when you get to the truth, you'll also get to paradox. So it's paradoxical. Why are we living here not knowing why we're here? And to me, that was a real question. And if you ask someone, well, where did you come from? Well, I don't know. Well, who are you? Well, I don't know. Well, where you go when you die? Well, I don't know. Well, why are you here? Well, I don't know. How can you be here and not know? It was really puzzling to me. How can you be here and not know any of these questions? So this was I had hair then, so I'll keep that slide up. So in 1979, I had a cardiac arrest, and a cardiac arrest, if you got to go, I would highly recommend it. It's like a switch. The heart's non-conducting. It's not a heart attack. It's not a vascular event, but it's a nerve conduction event. And when your heart stops, or when my heart stopped, you black out very quickly. Your blood pressure drops. Organs are shutting down. You're gone. And my heart stopped 3 times, and it was restarted 3 times. It might have stopped more by the time we got to the hospital or something. I was very sick. I had a high fever, and the doctor at the time, Lyme's disease was unknown. They didn't really know about it. And lately, some of the literature describes Lyme's disease as a virus that attacks nerve. At the time, he said, well, we don't have viruses that attack nerves, just muscles, and it wasn't a muscle issue with you, it was a nerve issue. So they didn't know why that nerve was non-conducting in the heart. So a complete heart block means that the bottom of the heart doesn't function at all. the top beats, but the bottom just, the nerve was going down, but it was blocked. So we went to the hospital. They didn't know what to do with me. Blood pressure was 50/40, and I'm laying in the ER, and nobody's doing anything because they don't know what to do. And this is sort of the beginning of some coincidences too. The head of cardiology happened to be at a meeting there that night, and he said, I never walked through the ER on the way home, but for some reason that night I walked through the ER. And they grabbed him and asked him, well, what do you think's going on? So then finally I realized somebody's working on my arm, and he puts a wire into the heart, and then he puts a pacemaker externally here to keep the heart beating. And I still was in and out of consciousness for the next week, and I was in the hospital for a month. But then he said, well, this device, I have to keep turning up the voltage level on it, and I've only got 2 more notches to go. So we're going to go up to Baltimore, to Hopkins in Baltimore, and they have more equipment up there, and we need to go there. And I was thinking, I don't want to ride in this, I was just thinking this, I don't want to ride in the ambulance alone. And his next words were, I've never ridden in the ambulance with the patient before, but in your case I'll go along, because I know how to play with this device. So we went up to Hopkins, and then he took his device back. They said, well, you want yours back, right? I said, wait a minute. Please, could I hold on to it for a couple of days? So they unplugged his device and plugged in their device, anyhow. So I was up there then for 2 weeks in cardiac intensive, and then another 2 weeks on the floor. And a lot of things happened. There was on the night of this was right near my birthday in March, but on the night of the 13th, it was just exhausting. I didn't know if I was going to make it. And my energy got weaker and weaker and weaker. And the clock was reading, 5 minutes of midnight. And I thought, if I can just hold on 5 more minutes. I made it to 5 minutes. Now it's the 14th. But on the wall was one of these little pads of paper that still said the 13th. Well, it was anguish because I wanted it to say the 14th. And in comes the male nurse, and just a great guy. He comes in and he rips this piece of paper off the wall, and he wads it up and he throws it in the trash can. And I thought, wow, the 13th is over. I'm going to make it. So from then on, it was gradual energy levels building back up again. And then I was 6 months recouping because the cardiologist said, we're going to treat you like you had a heart attack, although you didn't, but we're going to treat it that way. And they wanted to do a catheterization. I said, well, what will that show? Well, they didn't know of any blockage, an arterial blockage, so it didn't seem to matter whether or not they did anything. They just wanted to do it. So I refused to do it. I said, no, if it doesn't matter what you're going to be doing, let's not. And one strange thing I know, when I was in the hospital, I guess I must have been out of body. I heard the doctors outside there's little rooms in the ER, and I heard the doctors out in the hall talking, and when I first came in, and they said, we can make a lot of money on this one. I guess they were figuring, we can do lots of tests, we can do lots of stuff. Because he said, we don't see people come in here and leave as sick as you are. So let's get all the tests done we can. And so anyhow, fooled them. But they did a lot of tests and things, but they didn't do that. So anyhow, that was my NDE. And during that time, sometime during that time, and I'm not sure if I was in and out multiple times, but I was trying to describe how I got out of body or where I went. You've ever tried to pour water into a sieve? It's hard, isn't it? It just doesn't hold it. And I was trying to hold my life in somehow. As I got weaker and weaker and weaker, I was trying to hold my life in. And for me, it wasn't so much a tunnel as a sliding board. I could see a darkness below me, and it's quite frightening. It's not, I don't know, what is that? Where is that going? And why am I being pulled towards it? So it was sort of in a down direction, and I could feel this vacuum pulling me towards it, and I'm trying to hold on to the sliding board. And as I got weaker and weaker, when I let go, I sort of said, I don't know where I'm going, but it's out of my hands now. And whoosh, I'm down the sliding board. And the next thing I saw was, all of a sudden, I'm out in this vastness. And I'm looking at the universe. What a gorgeous picture this is of the universe. And it's just amazing to me, and I'm exclaiming, I'm not gone. I'm still here. I can still see. I can still think. I'm still me. And I was very surprised. I didn't know what I was going to expect, but I was sort of surprised. I was led to believe that, no, when you die, that's it. So I came upon this stuff. And I could also begin to see then that everything was connected to everything else. And there were these threads connecting all of those bodies. And then I saw that, whoa, those threads are connecting to me. And what's going on here? And I exclaimed, I don't know how you exclaim. You don't have any way to do that, but you exclaim. I exclaimed, so this is how it works. It's all so simple. It's all so simple. And I could see the simplicity of these threads in looking at this universe, everything being connected. And the simplicity of it was these threads weren't physical threads, it's energy, and it's love. It's love energy, what I call love energy. It's the same energy that when I was there, I'm looking out on this universe, and I didn't have a light experience. Only about a third of the people experience a light, although there may have been a light, I don't remember a light. But this love comes pouring into you, into me. And it's acceptance and love. Whatever I was, whatever I've done, didn't matter. I was accepted and I was loved beyond any measure that I could describe. So I'll describe the love, and some of names that you might use to describe this love are God, or God's love, or Creator, or Source, Great Spirit, Life Force. These are names that I could think of to call that, because when I think of God's love, that's, to me, God's love. Somehow you know, when you're loved like that, you know that there is no other love. That is love. And then I begin to ask, well, how can I describe this love? What is the nature of this love? And I mean, by nature, I guess I became confused because in Sunday school we're taught that God knows everything. God is all-knowing. God is all-powerful. God lacks nothing. And my question was, well, if God lacks nothing and is all-powerful, why is it necessary for this 3D time-space to exist? In other words, what are we doing here that's satisfying the need for our being here? What's going on? Why does this have to happen? And what I came up with was, and in the workshop we'll go into how you get to some of these answers. There's some techniques you can use to search for these answers. It took a long time. Is the answer there? Is it here? Where is the answer, and how do I find it? But this love, I feel its very nature is to expand. I spoke to a priest about it, and he said, well, he wouldn't use the word expansive, but he would use the word inclusive. But aren't we talking the same thing? He's saying this love includes everything. I'm saying this love is expanding into everything. And one other characteristic about it is it's unconditional, And unconditional love is fearless. What's the opposite of love? Fear, right? Most people say hate, but it's fear. And if fear slows you down or can stop you, but yet this unconditional love, you're fearless. So this God's love, or this love energy, is expansive and it's fearless, and it can expand dimensionally. It is powerful, so it can create this. And it can expand limitlessly. There's no limit to where it can expand. So if it wants to create another universe, if this was a big bang, is there a reason why it couldn't do that? And maybe the quantum physicists say that we've got an infinite number of multiple universes occurring right now at the same time. Is there any reason to believe that that couldn't happen? Why not? And it can do this continuously, as far as we're concerned in this time-space. Now, why does it do this? I think it's doing it to fill what I call the void, where love doesn't exist. So if it's expanding into it, it's filling this emptiness or this void. And it's sort of an evolution process, I see. That this expansion through time-space is the power. It's going to expand through time-space. There's nothing to stop it. So it'll just expand and fill void and fill where it doesn't exist. So eventually, what will come to earth? Heaven will come to earth. Right? So eventually, this love is going to fill the void and heaven will be here. So it expands step by step. So it doesn't really matter how long it's going to take. All the voids need to be filled, though, before it can go to the next step. So if there's something that is of a fear nature, that fear needs to be eliminated before it can move on to the next step. But there's an infinite amount of time. So, you know, if you've got time, you'll see the whole show. But we're part of the process. And this gets to the question, I think, of why we're here. There's what are we doing here to assist this expansion? To the degree that we assist love expanding in time and space, to the degree that we use the love that's in us to eliminate fear, we're assisting that evolution. And to the extent that we create fear, then we're hindering the expansion. However, we can't stop it. I feel that it is the energy, and it will continue. It's just going to take longer. So here's this ocean of love. Right? Where is it? That way. Is it that way? That way. Okay. So here's this ocean of love, because I'm just south on the same ocean, right? So this is the South Ocean. So here's this ocean of love, and when you're in the ocean next time, get down there and imagine that you're part of this ocean of love, and just see what it feels like. So here you're in this ocean of love, and there's another picture off the internet, which was interesting. Okay, here we are. Imagine if we're a drop of that love from this ocean of love energy. So we're at our core, I call it, or at our soul or our spirit, we're a drop of ocean, a drop of that love energy from this ocean of love. So here we are, there's our love energy core. You call it spirit or soul or essence. And what's there? It's an unlimited supply of love. I think we're taught that love is like an economic model, all right? Somebody's got to love you before you can be loving. And also, gee, be careful how much love you give away, because you won't have enough. But I'm saying you have at your core an unlimited amount of love. How you choose to use it, you could use it all the time. You won't have any less. It's not something that leaves when you give it, right? And people say, well, when you give it, you get it back. I'm saying, no, the model is just, it's forever you can give it.
I'm sorry, I just wonder, could you equate the word consciousness at all with love?
You know, I personally don't like the word consciousness.
It's too sterile for you.
I don't understand what it means.
All right, well.
All I'm, yeah.
Being awake.
Being awake, okay. I mean, being awake and alert is.
In the Zen sense.
Pardon me?
In the Buddhist sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You knew you existed. That's consciousness. I am, therefore I am.
I guess you call it that. I'll let you. Do you define
Well, and
consciousness?
I'm
Yeah.
reaching out to your experience when you pop through that.
Yeah.
That you know your exuberance and realizing that you were.
I'm still here. Yeah.
So is that consciousness?
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
All I know is that I knew I was still me.
Yes.
And then feeling that love, I knew that I also was the same love that love that's pouring into me. It's a feeling like you're home.
How about light versus darkness?
I saw no darkness.
No, but I'm saying, when everyone's awake, it's light. It's the quality of light is imminent.
We'll have to talk, because I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that ties. But I know that love is the energy. And I see that everyone is that drop of love. Everything is vibrational love. It's of everything. Everything is of love. That's the only way I guess I can describe it. Because to me, consciousness is too many confusing definitions of what people think it is. So I try not to get into it. So I just say we're love. But it's got to be simple. I can't understand it unless it's simple, and I can't describe it really unless it's ultimate. To me, the ultimate simplicity is unconditional love, and everything stems from that. And I think, to me, we need to describe that and be very comfortable with what we're talking about at that core before we can go on. And yet, I don't see that we put enough query into that. What is the simplicity of this existence? We're talking about the complexity of it a lot, but we can get back to that.
Do you have any thoughts about the devolution of our society in recent decades and the opposite
Can we have
forces getting
questions
the
at the
upper
end of
hand?
this session?
Yeah, hold on to that, and we'll come back to that. Can we do that? Okay. Anyhow, we have this unlimited supply of love, all right? And we're always connected. You remember the threads in the artist and the threads that I saw. We're always connected, and you're connected right now. You may not feel that connection, but you are. I know you are because when I was on the other side, I could see it. I'm connected to everything, and all the time. So everything is like gravity, I guess. It's always there. That energy is always there, and it's always affecting everybody, even if it's on the other side of the universe. And in that connection, we're one with everything. We are one at the core part, at our core, we're one. And we can't, you could look at it, we can't escape that. We're one. We are connected. You cannot break that connection. You'll always be connected. Eternally, you'll be connected. And you can see from that, there is no such thing as death. We're all eternal. Everything is eternal. So here we are at our core, and then there are these levels. I call them levels. I was trying to figure out, well, if my core is pure love, why doesn't it take over the rest of me? You know? Why doesn't it just spread and all of a sudden I'm nothing but just pure love? But I'm not. You know, I don't do good things all the time. You know, I'm not perfect. Or in our human sense of perfection. We really are perfect all the time. But in a human sense, no, I do the wrong things, or I mistreat someone, or I do something. And why doesn't that take over? And so there are an infinite number of these levels. And it's where this love energy hasn't yet filled us out. So, you know, what's going on there? But we have an ability to let this go in and extend into us and make us expand that soul part, or that drop. Let that drop get bigger and take over more of us. So we're more of our being is this love energy, or perfect love. But these are areas where it's not yet fully present, but it's an opportunity for us to expand into. If heaven's going to come to earth, it's got to get there somehow. So from this core perspective, from our soul, is some interesting concepts here. All right? At our core, I see no ego. Okay, there's no fear. Love energy eliminates fear, unconditional love. There's no pain. There's no disease. And interestingly, there are no pronouns. Really? Isn't that interesting? There's no I or you or us or we or me or they or them. At our NDE retreat in St. Louis, we have a lady who teaches Tai Chi in the morning. And at night one time, I was sitting there thinking, and I thought, gosh, if we're all one, then there are no pronouns. So I was talking to her about this, and she said, after the Tai Chi was over the next day, she said, did you notice anything? No, I didn't use any pronouns. Not put your hand out here, move your foot. It's just, she would just hand or foot or something. So I didn't pay attention, but anyhow. So this is interesting, because what do pronouns do? They cause separation. And they're not really descriptive of who we are. And there's no karma, there's no time, there's no space. I know what you're going to ask. We'll get back to that. And there's no, at this core, this drop of love energy, there's no belief. There's no need for belief. There's no what we call faith. There's no hope. There are no wishes or wants or needs. And there's no good or bad. Right? There's no success or failure. You cannot be successful at the core, and you cannot fail. There's no right or wrong. There's no fair or unfair. There's no winning or losing. You're no better or worse than any other drop from the ocean. It's all one. So at one, if this is one, there's no difference to anything. It's just love energy. And this was, I was walking somewhere. It was downtown somewhere. And it hit me that, oh, I get it. My being here is not about me. The sun doesn't revolve around the earth. Does that make sense? That I realized that my being here wasn't about me learning or growth, and it wasn't about me becoming more spiritual. A lot of people say we're here to grow, we're here to learn. Yeah, maybe at the ring that's around our core, but from a core perspective, how can I become more spiritual if I'm a drop of love from the ocean of love? Or how can I learn or grow if I'm unconditional love at my core? So at our core, there's a real interesting point here that our core doesn't need this, then what are we here for? So if it's not about the I of me, the separateness, then it must be about something else. So I see the simplicity of our core is unconditional love, it's energy, it's ecstatic joy, it's oneness, and it's complete. There's nothing else needed to complete it, and it is perfection. So we're really already all that is. We are perfection, and we're pure love. So where do we go from here? Okay. What are we here to do? I think we're here to assist this expansion or inclusiveness, if you will, of this love energy on Earth and in the universe. We're here to assist that. So we're here to put love into any fear of our life, any moment of fear. We're here to put love into that. And to the extent that we do, to the extent that we reduce that fear, then we're assisting. Even if we run the other direction and refuse, that's okay. You can do whatever you want. If there's fear and I don't want to go there, I can run the other way. All right? If I create fear, then I'm going to hinder that. I'm going to create fear. It's going to take a while before that fear goes away, before that void's filled. But if I assist it, then I'm assisting this expansion, or I'm assisting heaven coming to earth. And here's an interesting point. You can think about this. This is sort of new. I haven't fully thought it out. But see what you think. By assisting the creation of heaven on earth, or heaven coming to earth, we are actually creating heaven itself. Does that make sense? Because the next question, another question that we could ask, how did all this get started? But if somehow a little spark of love got started, there's nothing to stop it. And it could keep going. So if it's sort of self-creating, I don't know, I haven't fully thought this out. Is that something that could happen? So what we wind up with now is a love energy in the universe. So when we get to the other side, we see it. We don't know where it came from or where it started. We'll know someday. You probably need to be there to ask the question. But that just sort of crossed my mind is, wow, is it possible that what we're doing here and assisting that love energy to come here really creates heaven? Think about that. It's kind of nice. It's kind of exciting. So, what can you do if you're pure, unconditional love? If you're fearless and you're powerful? Well, from your core perspective, it's unlimited what you can do. There's nothing to stop you. You have all the power to do whatever you want to do, forever. Here's some helpful hints for our daily lives. Always keep asking. Don't take anything I've said here as truth, okay? This is a disclaimer. You are responsible to find your own answers. Lao Tzu said, at the center of your being, you know who you are. All right? You know who you are. So find your own model. If these words are helpful to you, please use them. But you find your own model and make sure it works for you if you're at all interested in those answers to those questions. So find your model, keep asking, where do you come from? Who are you? And see what you come up with. And where do you go when you die, and why are you here? Why are you here is a difficult one. I think that's a difficult one. I don't know if on the other side, some people are given a message of, my mission, right? I got no real message other than just you're being loved. You're loved, all right? And how I got back, I'm not exactly sure. I know when I got back in the hospital room, you know, I'm laying in the bed and I'm looking out a window and there's a brick wall over there, but the brick wall is so beautiful, and the sunshine on the brick wall. And the nurse came in and she said, "Why are you so happy?" And I said, "I guess I'm happy just to be back." And I don't know if she understood or anything, but it was just marvelous to be here. And then when I was able to walk down the hall and look out another window, I could see traffic. And this was up at Hopkins in Baltimore, and I could see traffic, and I could see it's a stoplight and people walking along the sidewalk. And it just, whoa, it really works. You know, how it's so complex here compared to the other side. The simplicity of the other side is so clear. And here it's so complicated. There's so many little, like the ocean, as it flows along, there's cracks in the ocean floor. That didn't change. And this love, as it flows along in the ocean, fills these cracks or these voids. And once they're filled forever. They don't need to be refilled. And just like us, you've got a population of people, and there are rules and there are laws and there's ways that we interact and so forth. It's very complicated in a structural sense. But all of these fears and all of these little things that are there need to be, the fear needs to be removed for love energy to expand and continue on. And it's a complicated thing. But it seems that this energy, I don't know what the word is, it's not needs to, but it seems that this energy has to fill all the void, all of the different possibilities. So if the quantum physicist is saying we've got an infinite number of universes, and there are infinite number of copies of us in each of those universes. So all combinations of different choices that we would make are occurring at the same time. If that's true, then yeah, this is going on all at the same time right now. So it's interesting. It'd be fun to speak with some of you. So anyhow, find your own words and your own answers and a model, and observe your ego. Because ego increases the boldness of the pronouns, and it increases separation. So observe your ego. It's up to you as to what you want to do. If you want to have a big ego and not feel connected to oneness, that's your choice. But just observe it, and remember there is no failure, and enjoy everything, whoever you are with, wherever you are, and whatever you're doing. And my request would be to help assist the expansion of love energy throughout the universe by being the presence of love here, and using that love to reduce any fears, reduce any conflicts you have with anyone else. Talk to your plants, talk to your animals, whatever it takes, whatever it is. Be that love. And you know, humanity, we could snap our fingers today and have peace on earth. Do you think we're going to do that? No way. And the energy, in order to expand, needs your help to get rid of the fears. And yet you've got the capacity to eliminate any fear in your life. Or even try. If you try, that's good. All right? You're assisting that. So anyhow, my plea would be to spread the love. And then eventually, our earth will, heaven will come to earth. Of course, then we don't want to talk about all of what goes on then. But heaven will be here, and heaven can be through the universe. Okay, good. Thank you.
If two people have a near-death experience at the very same time, can they, after they make the transition, can they have separate thoughts? And at what point did you switch from feeling being loved to loving?
The first one, yes, people have shared NDEs. And they call it shared NDEs. They may die, they may drown together, or they may have a car accident together, and they encounter the same kinds of things. Not necessarily all the time.
But can they have separate thoughts at the same
Separate
time?
thoughts, yeah.
In other words, they see the beauty, one sees the beauty before the connections, the other sees the connections before the beauty. They would be independent thoughts.
I'm not sure. I would think they could, yeah. Again, there's a paradox. If we're one, if I'm one out in the universe, how can I see my connection and yet feel that I'm still separate? I'm one, but I'm separate. So I'm not sure exactly how to answer that.
That would be good.
And
It's-
at what point did you go from feeling being loved to loving?
Excuse me, can you repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the tape.
Yeah. At what point did I go from feeling being loved to loving? Whew, gosh. It took a while. It took a while. There are a whole series of what's known as side effects or after effects. And I think you come back loving, just like a baby is loving, but you're not accepted fully. And here a baby, a loving child, we're gonna change that child to where it does certain things. Okay, you're gonna eat when I tell you to eat. You're gonna do this, or I'm gonna slap your hand. If you run out into traffic, I'm gonna do something. You can't just do everything that you want to do, you know, for survival or whatever else. But it's hard. It's hard to strictly be loving. Because, you know, your neighbor may not always be the person that you want to love, you know. And yet you know, you try to do what you can to help ease tension, say, between you and a neighbor, to reduce conflict. And you try to accept stuff. I guess some of it's because you know that you know more who you are. So it's, if somebody's angry with you or mad at you, you also know, well, do they have a real reason to be that way, or are they just that way? And so maybe it's a little easier to just to be calm and let things pass, let things go by. I don't have to be the one to confront this person. So I don't know if that fully answers, but yeah, there are NDEs that are called shared NDEs, and there's I'm not sure books about it, but at least chapters
Yeah.
about shared NDEs. Yeah, back to your
How
question.
about the term oneness?
Oneness?
Yeah, because see, my problem with love is that I don't want to sully the word love.
Sully?
You know, sully.
Selling?
Sully. You know,
Dirty.
Contaminate.
It becomes so innocuous, you know, if you use it in that way constantly.
Well, that's why the only new term I can use is love energy or unconditional love.
All right.
And in our workshop, we'll
But
do a...
oneness, look,
yeah.
do you remember Ram Dass?
Yes.
Love, serve, remember? You didn't touch on remember, but there might be something.
I don't know that you need to remember. I think you just need to know who you are.
Okay.
You need to discover who you are.
Well, that might be remember.
Okay? Yeah, because you need to remember, what were you like when you came in as a baby? When you were born into this time space. Can you remember back to that?
You know, what is your heritage, your story, your
Yeah?
past lives, your information?
Yeah, yeah,
Your individual
right.
note,
Right.
so to speak?
But I want to focus on love first.
Okay.
So, I mean, just so that that's very clear, because I think people need to understand who they are from a love point of view. Because you hear people, well, I can't be loving. I was mistreated all my life. I was abused, whatever. I'm not saying it's easy. But if they can remember back to who they are, how can love not be at our core? How could it not be there?
Well, it's there.
It's
but
there.
It's an intrinsic thing.
Yep.
It's there.
It's there. And most of us don't know it's there. We don't see it, we don't pay attention to it at all. We ignore it.
I have a question over here.
Yes,
What-
yes.
What is your definition of love?
My definition?
Of love?
Well, it's got to be what I call unconditional love. To me, that's the only love. All right, all other love comes from that root. And at the workshop, we'll get into that. There are Greek names for different kinds of love. We'll go into some of that. And we'll do a meditation to take us into some quiet space and see if we can remember, go back to where we were and remember that love. And I'll bet we can. It's there. We just have to get down to it. For NDEers, they remember the unconditional love. They know it.
It's more of a knowing than actually being able to put into words something that is complete acceptance, non-judgment, beingness. But there must be an awareness
an awareness.
in that additional, what I mean, is that in that state of being love. Is there an awareness? There must be an awareness because you brought that.
Sure.
back.
Sure, there's, in the state of, probably in the ideal state of unconditional love, if you can tap into who you are, that you can, you are not only aware, you are ultimate power. I'm not saying in terms of power like earthly power, but you now have tapped into your ultimate energy that has no limit. And I mean, I'd use an example like, say, Jesus. He could tap into that power. And there are others. And he could walk with 1 foot on the earth and 1 foot in heaven. Really remarkable. But he could tap in. He knew who he was. And he knew how to use that power. So he could use the power to heal. He could use the power to do whatever. Now there's another question which we didn't really get into, and we could get into it in the workshop. And that is, let me think, what's the question?
That's a question, what's the question?
Yeah, the question. Yeah, it just flashed through. But one thing we're going to get into the workshop is what I was calling, didn't include it in here, called the leading edge theory of this movement through time. This love energy, it's like you see on TV where there's an explosion and you get the shock wave, right? It's the same sense that at that leading edge of that shock wave is love energy going through time-space. All right? Well, we'll talk about that some. But say your question again, because
I'm not even sure what it was at the time, but when we talk about our loved ones on the other side, we're the ones that are on the other side because they're in the allness of the all.
yes, and we are too.
We
So
just don't have it, there's that, whatever that is, that we are.
Right.
Which you're saying might be the
Right.
fear.
We're here doing a job, and we're bringing love energy to this time space. We're here, we're here to help this expansion or inclusiveness of love into this time space. And that's our job. And really, it's everybody's job at the core level. So we're here to assist that. But dimensionally, our loved ones, so heaven is right here.
Yeah, exactly.
You can put your hand right into it, okay? It's right there. And yet I always look out there. And even when I was in the ICU, when I really was aware of what was going on around me, I asked, well, there's the pole with the stuff hanging on it, going into you and all that stuff. And there was a mirror there. And I said, well, the mirror lets me see out the window from the bed. And I would disappear out the window. Because the room is so terrible, but the blue sky, boy, I was out there all the time. And I asked, I said, well, how'd the mirror get there? Well, you asked for it.
Oh.
I never remembered that.
Oh.
And then there was a radio playing elevator music, which was kind of relaxing. And I said, how did the radio get there? Well, the guy in the next room, in the ICU, he was leaving, and he said, oh, he might want this. And that was nice, because times, you just need something to take your mind off stuff. That was, a lot of things happened that were really neat. But did that answer your question?
Yes, it's
Okay.
helpful.
Yes.
You never mentioned running into like a being of any sort. It was all just a feeling. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Let me run through that. Yeah. When I got back in the bed and looking out at the brick wall, there was a bargaining, and I don't yet know all what the bargaining was about. I don't know all of that yet. All I know is that there was this feeling in your mind that, something. I signed something. I don't quite know all of that, but I do know before.
He doesn't really own his house anymore.
I was given a
Signed
choice,
his life away.
and there was a being, and I couldn't really see a face, but there was a torso, and I could see that. And the being said, "You can."
What color was the torso?
It was like robes. Yeah. Although there was no name, to me it was Jesus. And he said, make up your mind whether you want to go back or not, but before you do, put your hand on your mother's heart, this being Mother's Day weekend.
Oh, wow.
Anyhow, she was still alive, and you know, and I could feel her pain if I died. And you can imagine what that pain would probably be. And then the being said, and put your hand on my heart.
Oh.
I can't even describe that. And after that, there's no question, you come back. Because we're doing work here. There are things that we're doing here, and we need to be here to do them. What we're doing here, we cannot do in heaven. I call it heaven. You know, we just can't. Let me get your...
I just want to acknowledge what you just said about your mother's heart and the experience of that, because I look at this as we're experiencing something, maybe not sure exactly all of it yet, but when I think of love, I used to work compassionate, probably similar to your unconditional concept, and really if you're in a state of being in complete understanding with love with Jesus, and yet you feel your mother's pain, and you choose to go back to this confusing business, to me that's compassion for your mother.
Sure.
That's understanding of her pain, fear, whatever, and choosing to end it for her in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, she died, it was many years later. I mean, she was 104 when she died.
Oh, wow.
And
Goodness.
that was, what, 13?
See, look at the longevity you could have.
Oh, I know. Well, now I have a pacemaker. And because I had another cardiac incident 3 years ago, and the E.R. doctor comes in and he says, I'm here to talk about pacemakers, but then there's not much to talk about because you don't have a choice. So I said, let's do it. So that keeps it going. So, because it was, fortunately then, in this incident, I didn't have an NDE from it, the bottom of the heart kept beating. So they're really kind of two little pacemakers in our heart. It was beating, but it was like 30 beats a minute. But the bottom was still functioning. Before, it was not. And anyhow, but yeah. And coming back, or when she died at 104, I was with her the month before, and then she died. And I didn't really think about it for about a week, and I thought, oh my gosh, she's gone now. So if I go, she won't feel the pain.
I haven't really discovered a word yet for parents who lose children like that. Probably 16 years ago, my uncle passed, and I was at his service with his parents, and I said, Mr. Hall, I just can't imagine. And he just held my hands, and they were shaking, and he's this big, strong guy, and he says, there's no word, and he's right, there's no word.
Yeah.
And I do medium work, and I've done a lot of work with people who've lost, and when you work with most people, you feel lots of things when you work with them, but when you feel a parent who's lost a child, you just feel a void, and it's not the void you experience, it's an empty, and I don't know from a personal perspective how that is, but it's something.
Yeah, there, in Maryland, there's a group, Compassionate Friends, and they found our group, and we would go speak there, and it's got to be, here are parents who have lost their children from whatever reason, and it's absolutely the most un-ego-centered group I've ever been in. Nobody's trying to be better than anybody else.
And
Everybody.
that's what experience you don't want to top.
Yeah, everybody is so supportive of new people coming in. It was just a great experience to be there. Yeah.
How did, when you came back from your near-death experience, how did it affect your relationships? I don't know if you were married then, but your friends, what happened?
Yeah, I was
with that?
divorced about 12 or 14 years later. Yeah, it affects your relationships. And I guess studies have shown that 80 to 90% divorce rate if one spouse has an NDE and the other doesn't, especially after they've been married, because your personality changes.
Do you
I was a
wiser,
great guy
or just-
before,
Do you get quieter? What happens because you're not?
Yeah, your personality really changes. Yeah, overall, I think NDEers are more loving. They've seen the love, and they're more compassionate, they're more caring. A lot of NDEers get into hospice because now they're not afraid of death. So I did hospice for a year and a half, and I was still working, and I stopped because I couldn't afford the time. But yeah, I would go to nursing homes and visit with those people who were dying. And there was some local hospice organizations that would use volunteers to do that. A lot of people do. So in your group, there might be some of the NDEers who do that. Yeah.
I wanted to say that some people simply don't have, well, put it this way, there once was a spiritual healer named Joe Goldsmith. He was handling about 135 calls a day for healing. He shared in his biography that he had never personally felt love. Okay, and I share this because there are different dimensions. God is all, and there are many dimensions, all right, like a diamond with different facets. So he did not experience love. And they said, Joel, how can you say such a thing? You are tireless, effortless. You work nonstop on behalf of people. How can you say that you don't experience love? And he said, I understand the divine principle. The divine principle is the love, includes the love. And I understand that the love will work, and it does its work. That's what I understand. And so I just wanted to share that because not everyone, there are gifts.
Right.
And not everyone naturally, is brimming, with the love. However, one can still do a great deal of good, knowing that this energy is here. There's no void, no Swiss cheese holes in God. It's here.
That's right.
And it does its work. It includes consciousness, mind, awareness, and energy. It does its work. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Not people should be worried that they don't feel a lot of love.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. It's all inclusive.
Yes.
And you're right.
Yes, and it's a great gift to have had the gift of the experience.
Yeah. But it's not hard to talk, but it's hard to, I don't want to take any credit for any of this. It's hard because that creates ego. And that's hard. It's hard to do that. But you're right. You can heal however you heal. Padre Pio, familiar with Padre Pio? A priest in Italy, and I guess wasn't it in the early 1900s he died, or
1960?
60 something. Yeah. And he had the stigmata, and he had an ability to translocate. So people would come in from another village and say, "Oh, Padre Pio was with me and healed me today," or something. So no, he's been here. He's in his room or in his prayer. He's been there all day. And yet they saw him and he was healing them. And it was a, you know, it was a struggle, but he's still healing. Yeah, he's still healing because the gloves and the shawl and things that he wore, you know, Dave knows that.
Yeah.
Take them around and they and use that till. But it'd be neat to go to Italy and go to where he lived, Petrosina or something like that.
Yeah, Petrosina.
Yeah.
Stand in his cell. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun to do. It would be neat to do that. Yes, yes.
I was curious about your work as a data analyst in the medical field.
Uh-huh.
Is that in cardiac electrophysiology, defibrillators? Just curious if you used your
Computers.
experience
No,
to,
it was in computers, but that was before the incident. But I still stayed in data analysis, but I found it more and more difficult to work for an employer. You know, most NDEers don't like to be told what to do. And it's just hard because things are, in the business world, things are not necessarily done in a loving way. They're cutthroat. We're in an ego-based, greed-based economy. And we're taught, you've got to be ruthless. You need to do that. You need to squash these people maybe if you're going to get ahead. It's, you know, that's our economy. So it's a comparison economy. You know, have you made it? Have you not yet? Or what do you need to do to get ahead? You need to have more education or whatever you need. So if heaven's going to come to earth, that's got to change. The economy's got to go. And language I think's got to go. We can lie with words, but you can't lie if you're communicating through the eyes. If you're really looking at people, or you're giving someone a hug or something, you know. So I'm not sure language is such a good thing for us. We may blow ourselves up. Now, that's just part of evolution. Okay, if we do, that means start again. Anyhow, yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'm more of an analytical thinker, so I'm hoping you can help me with the big picture of what we're all doing here, because it kind of goes along with what she was, or how you were answering her question with the, we're very economic oriented, or very complicated world, but why is that if our purpose is to spread love throughout the world? Like, is this a challenge that we like? And you mentioned also about we can create heaven on earth, and it kind of sounded like you were saying this might lead to opening up new universes. So am I understanding that correctly? And like, what is the big picture as you understand it?
Oh, the big picture I think is that love energy, and I'm not sure what the word is, because I'm not sure if desire is the right word, or it is, I'll just say it is. Love energy is expanding throughout time space. Okay. And what it does is to eliminate fear, since its opposite is fear. Now, but there's so many levels going on, but I mean, in the physical sense, but and I don't want to call it a desire, that's just what it does. So it's going through time space. Essentially, heaven is trying to get to earth. I know some ministers talk about our job is to find our path back to heaven. I think it's the other way around. Heaven's trying to get to earth. And our job
So we're the conduits of it.
We're part of that mission. Does that answer? I'm not sure that answers.
I guess I'm kind of confused as to, since man was first created or evolved or whatever you think happened that brought us here, like if we are all here to spread love, how do we get to such a place where it's like we need to fight so hard to spread it? You know what I mean? Am I explaining myself correctly?
Well, I mean, we weren't responsible for getting to the point where we are now as far as the world situation. But whatever you can do to use the love in you to relieve any fear, that will help. Because it seems that it's almost as if love energy wants to eliminate all types and kinds and minutia of any fear. There's another interesting thing that Thomas Mellon Benedict was talking at one of the IONS conferences. And he said, what is it about our God that this God is obsessed with knowledge and memory? He used the word memory. And I thought, whoa, what does this have to do with it? Because, yeah, memory has to do with it. Okay. But think about it. All right. How can you have expansion without memory? All right. So, this love energy needs to know, has it been in this room yet? If it's been here, then it reduced some fear here, then it never needs to come here again at that moment and that instant and do it again. That is done forever. It's like it's wanting to experience all things and to eliminate all fear. Then it'll be done. Forever. It won't ever need to be done again. But every moment of our life is a new beginning, and every moment is a new fear. Every instant, every microsecond is a different moment. But once one moment's been, you reduce fear a little bit, boom, it's done. Doesn't have to be done again. So you keep doing it until, but it all needs to be done. That love energy wants to never have to come back and clean up. It wants to get it done.
Right.
And then it'll do something else. Yeah. Let me get there first.
When you were in this bartering dialogue that you have some memory, recollection of, the being with the rose presence, when the being said, touch my heart, did that remove fear? What happened? I sense a download of unconditional love, certainly. And did that help you to make a decision?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it was more of a...
And how? How did it help?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if I can answer that. That when... I know I was in France, there's the Sacré-Cœur, the Sacred Heart Church, the big white church up on the hill in Montmartre, in Paris. You've seen it,
Yeah.
and it's the Sacred Heart Church. And I had never paid attention to the statues or to the mosaics before. And I was there, and I had the kids with me, and I told them, well, you go around and look, I'm going to sit down. I was sitting there in the church, looking up, and there's this huge mosaic up above the altar, way up high. And Jesus, there's this huge heart and rays just shooting out from it. I'm looking at it. Why didn't I see that before? It's like, wow. And you put your hand on that? It's just indescribable. I guess what I saw was why we're here. What's going on? How much more love could there be from that heart? And you see it now in many other statues in a lot of places. Statues with the heart. So, I don't have the words. Lao Tzu didn't have the words. But it's happening. All of this is happening every minute. It's all happening. It's right in front of us. It's beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And I think that was part of the message too. Look how beautiful all this is. And look how how beautiful it is that we're all a part of it. And how beautiful it can be if if we see something that needs doing, how much we can do to increase that beauty, you know. I hope that helps. Okay. Yes.
Maybe I was misunderstanding, but when you were talking about love and energy, and because that's not necessarily a separate thing. I mean, aren't we love energy, each one of us?
Yes.
I mean, and Jesus is kind of the representation of that also. So it's not really outside of us. Like, we don't have to wait for it to come in.
Correct.
I mean, we are that
You are.
energy, and we just have to release whatever fears we have, or something. I mean, isn't, you know, to know that love is already there.
It's already
in
there.
each one of us.
Yep.
I mean, rather than kind of think, and then it, you know, then it becomes everywhere. But we just have to be more aware, maybe, of that we are love.
You are love.
Is that sort of? I mean, so it's not outside.
Yes,
necessarily.
you're right. You're right.
Sort of. I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, it's there. That's this core that I talk about. That's your spirit. That's your soul. I don't know what you want to call it.
So
I don't know
when
what
we're
else.
looking at it, it's kind of a reflection. I mean, it's not like it's a reflection.
Yeah, my model, I saw it as it's our core, and we're connected to it. But that's a nice model. Yeah, go with that. Because you're really one. We're one with everything.
Yeah.
But it's trying to describe it in terms that people can understand too. We're one. And you can't become unone. You can't undo yourself. Yeah. There is no separation. You cannot leave the flock, right? You can think you're different, and you can think you're alone.
But we're not.
You're not. And how do we get people to understand that when you're hurting someone, you're hurting yourself? You're hurting everything. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So when you were given your understanding and when you had your near-death experience about how things work, did you come to an understanding of the whole point of having a planet filled with people that have crevices that need to be filled?
Uh-huh.
What's the point of an Earth with a lot of egos and negativity floating around in a sea of love?
That's right. Why? Why do that? What is this here for? And another question is, and that was the question I thought about and then forgot. Another question you could ask, why is there a veil? Why do we feel separate? Why don't we know our oneness? The only thing I can do is try to describe it as to what's happening. We feel we're separate. You know, I don't feel all the time I'm one with everybody or everything. But we are. I see that we are, and I saw that we were. So why do we feel separate? So what's going on? And the best I can come up with is that this love energy, this ocean, is exploring all different kinds of levels and dimensions. All right? So this is a dimension then. A dimension of feeling separate from itself. So if we're a drop from that ocean, the ocean could think, I wonder what it feels like if my drops didn't know they were connected to me. It's a dimension, it's a level to be explored or expanded into. So what will happen to us if we all realize that's mom, you know, that's mom back there, the ocean or whatever, and I'm connected to that. I'm one with that ocean. What a different world it would be. Again, say Jesus was connected. He knew he was connected. So what if all of us had that feeling? But then the exploration, I don't know what other words to use, the exploration of love energy into a separateness concept wouldn't be there. So maybe that's what we're doing. We're exploring a feeling of separateness from ourselves from the oneness, from the ocean of love.
So, so to extend from that, do you have any thoughts about the devolution of society since the 50s and the higher prevalence of evil in the world?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah, about the higher prevalence of evil in the world since the 50s or so. I don't see any evil. I don't see evil. At our core, there's no good or bad. There is no right or wrong. So you're free to do anything you want. And then just the core, okay? There are other legal things that you don't want to do anything. All right, there are certain things that are illegal by law, so you don't want to hurt someone, but you're still free to do anything, which is interesting too. How come we're free to do anything we want? But we're, at our core, again, there's no right or wrong. So we're free to create fear. If you want to become a terrorist, you can become a terrorist. That's antithetical to helping spread the love. But you can do it. You know, if this love energy doesn't want us to do it, then why does it let us do it? But it's, yeah.
I think the problem, Jesus said it, it's money. And if you wanted to meet needs lovingly, you would build small ecological homes that did not rob the planet. You would have only wholesome foods, none other. You would have non-profit medical care. You would have all your basic needs met, and you would probably need to work only half of the year, if that. And if you wanted to do it was on the basis of love. But things are done on the basis of making money. And this is the terrible, terrible mistake. Terrible mistake. Not saying you can't be sustainable, but it is just a mistake.
Yeah, heaven can't come to earth until that changes.
Yeah, if you decide to provide for human needs on the basis of love, and also let's stop eating the animals as well. You don't need to be doing that anymore. There's no reason. That is the problem. It's the money and the profit of it.
It drives our economy.
Not organized according to the true love of animals and the environment or people. So it's very simple, actually, I think.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood this correctly. What I got from it when you were saying that you had that choice, that you felt your mother's pain if you were to die, but then when you put your hand and you felt the unconditional love, what I got from it was that you saw the power of that, you saw the truth of that, and you saw what's possible. And the entity you were communicating with already had that.
Yes.
Your mom needed it. And like you said, you still had a lot of work to do, not just your mom. Your mom was what brought you back, but there's still a lot to do, and to spread what you learned there here, which is what you're doing with us. And comments that, I had questions along the way, but it's all coming to me now. When somebody mentioned about why are we here with all this anger, with all this grief? Okay, well that's the way things were evolved, because it was kind of like an experiment to see. And now the powers that be are saying, well, I wonder what it would be like if these humans were aware that this is temporary, that they are spiritual beings. And I think that's what's happening now with the lifting of the veil, if you will, with more and more people having NDEs and sharing with other people, with people being able to, with Reiki and all these other things, be able to touch somebody and make them better, similar things to what Jesus did. And he's the one that said that we can all do this, just like I could do it. Anyway, there's no question in here. I'm wondering if this is kind of like what you were saying when you said that. I'm trying to see if I understood you correctly.
I think so. Yeah. It's like it's an experiment. Yeah. Things are. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment. She asked up front about why are certain things allowed that can be commented with free will. And my reflection of it, whenever I think about it, is I love my child unconditionally. But she didn't stay this little baby that I could change and feed. She grew. She did grow, and she evolved, and she developed her own, to the point of trying to get her own consciousness and awareness of her place in the world. And she's 15 now, and she doesn't always make the choices that I would command her to make if I would make them, you know? She was up till like, she finished a math test that was due at midnight last night at like 11:45. My radar was going off, but she has to experience it from her own consciousness, from her own position. So as much as we are all one, we are experiencing it from our own place.
Yes.
And if you look at that love energy of the universe, of God, of Jesus, however you want to phrase that, as the parent, as the creator, and we are the children, I imagine it must be a similar thing. I love you unconditionally, even when you're up till 11:45 doing math homework.
Sure.
Or whatever challenges come in the next couple of years. But it's free will. It's your, that's what it is. And it's exciting to watch someone grow like that. I imagine that all parents experience that. When you see somebody take first steps or make an amazing, fulfilling decision, I'm sure there's frustration and going, really? We're going to do this again? When the free will leads to greed and hurt.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can imagine the excitement of this God energy, seeing all this happen.
Seeing it's all here today,
Yeah.
talking about it in such a great way.
Yeah. You know, it's well put. Yeah, I raised 2 teenage daughters. I sympathize with you.
Yeah. Bless you.
First of all, I'd like to thank you so much for sharing so much of your personal experience. And I'm wondering, you leave the hospital with profound work being done on all the inner parts of your body, so entire physical change, and you bring with you this profound change of love, this feel of being carried in love. And I'm wondering, when you left the hospital and you walked home, was there a period of integration?
Yeah.
How did those come together for you?
It was, oh gosh, it was years. Because NDE, this was in '79,
Right.
near-death experience wasn't a household word. And Moody's book was only in '75, so.
Right.
But my ex had found a book some years later, and I'd talked to her about it, but there was nobody else to talk about it. Ions, I don't think, you know, there was very rude, very beginnings then. So there was no place else I knew. I didn't know what this was, and it's very personal. And you just don't go out and talk to somebody about it. But she found this book called Chop Wood, Carry Water. Oh, well, okay. And then there is a section on death and dying. And she said, wow, this is saying some of the same thing you're talking about. And then there was a sort of a paragraph, and it was talking about everything that's happening is happening for a purpose. And it's all happening according to the plan. And wow, how do I know this? And so I clipped it, and I kept it by the bed, and that's my validation. That was my validation. And then many years later with the teenagers, gosh, I was at work, and they, Dad's doing his stuff. You know? And so they knew I went to Ions. I didn't keep anything from them, but they didn't have a position on it.
Right.
But about a year later, I got a call from my daughter at work, and calls me at work, and Dad, you'll never believe there are people in Okra speaking just like you do. So, oh, great. So I was, you know.
You were cool then.
I was cool. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
Well, this is maybe a little weird. Have you thought about the significance of finding the God particle, the Higgs boson? To me, that was, with my experience, and I thought, and when I first heard about it, I thought of you and your thing about the expansion of the love energy, was that to me, they had found love, the creative force of the universe, and it goes back to the Higgs field, because Higgs postulated in the 60s that there was this field, this energy field that connected everything in the universe, and perhaps, he wasn't sure, but perhaps created everything. And with the discovery of the God particle, they're postulating that this particle that they isolated is what
creates matter, that everything is created out of that. So I'm just sitting there going, well, duh, it's the God, it's the love energy, it's the God energy.
Could be.
But
Yeah.
but that whole thing of, you know, we finally hit a point where science is proving the you know, the ancient wisdom. So I didn't know if you had ever thought about that, or
Yeah.
had any
Yeah.
thoughts of how this coincides with your
I've thought about it.
hypothesis or your,
Right, I
your,
know.
your experience.
Well, I've thought about it, and I just we need a conference with some, and for ions, we're trying to, don't we have some particle physicists we could get to come to the conference?
No.
On some of the conferences we did. We did have a guy come, and he
Yeah.
talked about the multi-universe theory, which was really interesting and somewhat helpful, and he likened it to, you've got a balloon, and so you've got a balloon, this is a universe. All right, there's the universe, it's in this balloon, that's our known universe. And then black holes are really links to other balloons. Okay? So if you go through there, now you're in this universe. And there's just an infinite number of these. And that was helpful to understand.
Is that Nolan Thomas?
No.
No, that wasn't him. Yeah. But, yeah, at some day, I guess we'll find out. But it'd be interesting to get some of the particle physics people to chat with them. Or if, I don't know how to get their interest.
Yeah.
It would have been neat to talk to, who's the billions and billions of,
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan. It would need to talk to him, or to the guy up in New York who teaches. But then, who just died in the wheelchair? Stephen Hawking. Wouldn't it have been fun to chat with him? Now he says,
Tyson.
I don't believe in God. Well, you believe in this. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Forget the name.
Yeah,
And
that's the
why
name.
that's why I don't want to use the word. Yeah, God to me, people have their own connotations of God, so that's why I'm using love energy. I don't know what else to call it, as that energy and stuff. Yeah.
I know very little about it, that's just a little bit, but what about the CERN, the CERN thing, what's
Oh, the collider.
Yeah, oh my God.
You know.
That's what discovered the God.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What?
That discovered the God particle that she was talking about.
CERN.
Yes, right. The Hadron Collider, or whatever they call it, Hadron Collider. And China is building one much more powerful, I understand. Whatever that means. But yeah, I know, it'd be interesting to see that.
More God.
Yeah, more God, right.
Okay.
Let's see, I got a couple of, you want to see a couple of cartoons?
Can you just tell us, did you really see her lions?
I don't know how to describe it. She's walking in, and we're sort of, were we beginning or
I
finishing?
think you were starting to do the announcements, and I
Something.
came in late as
And she
usual.
comes walking in, and it's like, what's with you here? What's walking along with you? And she said, you can see them? And I said, well, I don't know what I see. But yeah, it was something like that. There's something small. But there were a lot of them. There's just like little shadows coming in.
I had her cried with me. Yeah.
And then she just, you can see them.
Nobody ever saw him before. I couldn't even see him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still can't see him.
Part of your talk because you're under contract?
Contract?
Or is this the real you?
I don't know. But it's a real me.
Okay.
Yeah. Ask anybody who knows.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the real him.
Okay, here's some cartoons I ran across. Well, I thought you might enjoy some of these. These two people here are saying, "Oh, look, there's some unconditional love." See, this is
A church.
This is a church. See, isn't that sort of?
Fall on it.
Yeah, well, it's a trap, right? So the church is luring you in. You know, it's like, oh, come to us for unconditional love. So that was kind of cute. And this is a little embarrassing to admit, but everything that happens for no real reason. This guy's saying, when it's eternity here, it's still early morning on the West Coast. And This one's not. Yes, I'm sure. It says here the full moon isn't until the 23rd or something. So he's got these moons.
He only gives us 4 stars.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. And this guy's saying, so I'll have to believe it to see it? So many people. I mean, I'm confrontational a little bit at church when the pastor says, well, you got to believe in order to get to heaven or something. I said, well, it has yet to turn a profit. And this, I'm expecting easy confirmation, this guy says. You're getting into heaven. Yeah, it's pretty easy. You'll get there. I don't know. I just went right in. I think.
Smooth ride. Right?
Smooth ride, yeah. And don't fear that sliding, that blackness at the end of the sliding board. Just go for it.
Let go.
Let go. Yeah. Don't be afraid to let go. Yeah.
I was thinking, you know people who have experiences where we can say that they died and came back, but they don't have the memory, like they don't remember vividly like you do?
Yeah. All different levels. Yeah. Yeah.
And they might remember it years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah.
I know somebody who technically did, but they don't really have any recollection of anything at all.
Well, they may. Yeah. I mean, maybe they did. Maybe they don't. You know. This human experiment has gone on long enough. Give the hippos control. So, like you were talking there. Let somebody else speak it. This was, I don't know about NDEs, but it's... 65, 70, 75. And then this is the best one though. What on earth am I doing here on this beautiful day? This is the only life I've got. That's all of our sentiments exactly. Let's get out and enjoy it. Well, thank you. Any more questions?
So thank you all for coming. We hope you'll join us for lunch up the hill. And